Hello everyone, welcome to Sunday's motivation video. I have a very interesting video for you today. So I'm going to cover the differences in life growing up as a 90s kid, someone like me, vis-a-vis someone who has grown up in 2000s, who are interestingly called as Gen Z, right? So difference between 90s kids and Gen Z, I'll explain it in 5 points. So number one point is that as a 90s kid, we did not have any major FOMO, fear of missing out. Now this is a problem that majority of Gen Z children face. If you agree, hit the like button, that would mean a lot. So let me explain this point further, that why was this the case? Actually, when I was growing up in the 90s, that internet was very limited. It had very minimal penetration. So I grew up in a tier 3 city. So even the access to internet there was very difficult. So our life was very simple, so to say. We used to have this dial-in modem, right? So you need to physically connect it to your physical landline, and it used to take 10 minutes just to set up the internet connection. And internet was very expensive at that time. So to cut the long story short, we did not have any major FOMO because we could not get access to a lot of other stuff that our friends were doing, a lot of other stuff that was happening in the world. So it was a peaceful, quaint life that we just used to live in our own bubble, and we used to enjoy it. It was a simpler times from that time. In the name of social media, we used to have something called as Orkut. The UI UX interface of Orkut was horrible. It was horrible. You would not, even if you try spending hours scrolling through your feed, you could not do it. The way Gen Z does right now, that if we are on our Instagram or on our Facebook, we might end up scrolling and wasting so much time. So in the hindsight, it was a blessing that social media had a limited reach and it saved a lot of our times growing up as kids. Now, unfortunately, this simple life got very complicated for Gen Z children. And if you have grown up in the 2000s, and I'm sure that even 12-year-olds these days, they use social media very extensively. They spend insane amount of time scrolling through social media feeds, which leads to massive FOMO. So that, according to me, is like one advantage of growing up as a 90s kid. If you're a 90s kid, hit the like button. Growing up in the 90s, the internet predominantly used to be used only for education purposes. For example, I remember that my mom and dad bought me this Encarta encyclopedia. Now it had a CD-ROM. In order to get additional information about that CD-ROM, I had to connect it to the internet and study from Encarta just by plugging it into my computer. So internet was predominantly used to consume this type of information like Britannica, Encarta encyclopedia, etc. So the primary use of internet for us was for educational purposes. The second point that differentiates 90s kids from Gen Z is that we had very limited on-demand entertainment. So there were a bunch of shows that I used to eagerly wait for to watch. For example, I used to love watching Malgudi Days. I used to love watching Shaktiman. I used to love watching Filmfare Awards. So bunch of these shows were only live, right? There was no other way. If you miss the show, then it's gone, right? So literally there was no other way but to mark your calendar and turn up your TV at that particular time to watch that show. There was no recording option. So the on-demand entertainment was very less. In fact, some of my friends used to miss school to watch Shaktiman, right? I'm sure. Please do type in your comment if you were one of those people who missed school to watch Shaktiman, because it used to come on Saturday sometime and it was a school day for many school children, and children used to miss school to watch Shaktiman. This also leads to the point that kids in the 90s had a more real life. For example, so till the time I was almost 20, I never used the phone at all, right? So if I had to go meet my friends, I used to physically go and meet them. I used to drive my bike, go to their house, sit with them, spend a lot of time, come back home. Our routine was very structured and simple that hey, go to school, come back, have lunch, play a little bit, go meet your friends, come back, do your homework, watch some TV and go to sleep. So that was it. There was no scrolling through social media. The friends were real, right? So to say that you actually used to go physically meet them, play with them, go on drives, go on picnics, go to parties. So all the social activities that we had were real, right? They were not virtual in any way because our reliance on social media, our reliance on cell phones was very limited. Third point is that we did not have any decision fatigue because we had very limited options to choose from. For example, if we had to order food, could we order food? Answer is probably no, right? We had to literally call up the restaurant to order food. So our choices were very limited in terms of ordering food. We had limited options to travel. For example, I remember going to Goa multiple times with my family. and it used to take literally 2 days to travel from my place or my city to Goa, and we did that multiple times. So travel options were very, very limited. Flights would have existed, but for middle class families, taking flights was literally close to impossible. So again, the decision fatigue in terms of, hey, so which mode of transportation to take was not there at all for us. If you have to go to Goa, you have to go via train. That's it. That's the only option. In terms of comics that we could read, I'm sure. And if you're a Hindi comic book reader, you would have read Nagraj and Chacha Chaudhary. These were the 2 books that even I read. And if you're an English reader, you would have read Archies. These 3 comic books were the ones that almost every kid read. So we had no options in terms of comics books also. We also had a very limited celebrity culture. So there were hardly 6, 7, 8 celebrities that we used to follow. Almost everyone used to follow. If you loved Bollywood, you would have followed the 3 Khans. If you would have loved cricket, then you would have followed Sachin, Saurav and Rahul Dravid, right? So these were basic celebrities that we followed. Nowadays, because of social media, so many Instagram influencers have come up, so many YouTube influencers have come up. So the number of celebrities or mini celebrities have just exploded, right? So there is no end to following. Now, due to the social media culture, Gen Z ends up following n number of influencers, right? So it leads to a lot of fatigue, whom to follow, where to buy clothes from, where to order food from, how to travel, when to travel, why to travel. So there are just so many choices, which leads to a lot of fatigue for Gen Z. Fourth point is that since we had to consume almost all the information live, we had to become much more attentive. For example, there was no recording option for our classes when we used to go to school. So if you miss a lecture or if you miss a part of lecture, gone. You just need to rely on your friends to pass the exam. So you had to be attentive in schools. Similarly, if you went to a coaching institute, there were no concept of online coaching per se. So you had to pay a lot of attention and emphasis in your coaching classes. Similarly, most of the interaction happened in person. For example, you either went to your friend's house or your friends came to your house. And there was a lot of face-to-face connect, so to say. And because of which, you automatically learned to pay attention to what the other person was saying, right? Sometimes what happens is that in the digital world, if you're interacting with someone on Zoom, that level of connection is not there, right? So that because of that, our attention span keeps on going down. So this problem was not there with the 90s kids. Now many of the Gen Z audiences would say that, hey Akshat, this seems so impressive. Wish we were born in that era. So let me tell you that that era had several problems as well, right? Number one, we used to get physically beaten by our teachers. I'm not kidding. Our teachers used to physically beat us. If you're a 90s kid, please drop a comment if you too were beaten by your teachers. I was beaten a lot, right, by my teachers. I was not a good student. I was actually a state level cricketer. So I used to miss a lot of classes. I did not used to score well, bunch of other different host of problems. Bottom line is that I was not a good student and I used to get frequently beaten up by my teachers, right? So that was bad. It instilled somewhat discipline, highly arguable, but let's leave the discussion there that, hey, 90s kids were beaten by their teachers. That's one. The second problem was that because we had limited choices, it also led to pockets of inequality. For example, I grew up in a tier 3 town. Now, if I had to write an exam, I had to travel to Delhi. Now, if I had to get enrolled at a good coaching institute, I had to travel to Delhi or some major metro. Even if I have to buy a branded sneakers, I had to go and travel to Delhi. So, for every little thing, you had to travel to Delhi. So, that created deep pockets of inequality. So, luckily, my parents, mom and dad, my mom actually watches all my videos. So, big shout out to her. She also reads all my comments and she's on top of things, how many followers I am getting each day. And she talks to me whenever we have conversations. So, a big shout out to her. Coming to the topic that my parents invested a lot in me in terms of helping me avail any type of help that I needed. So I could go to travel to Delhi to get anything that I wanted. So they made a lot of investments in me, but this was not true for all the kids who grew up in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Right? There were massive pockets of inequality. Even English speaking medium schools were very hard to find. Good teachers were very hard to find. So it led to a lot of inequality, right? Nowadays, it's much more abridged because you can use the internet. If you're staying in a tier 3 city, it hardly makes a difference. If you're studying at an elite school in Delhi, you can, at least from a skill level, you can still go and explore Khan Academy. You can explore Cases Over Coffee, which is one of the platforms that I run. You can avail all these organizational help to grow in your career. Right? This option was not there for us and it led to a lot of inequality for people. This ties into the point that there was no concept of customized learning. For example, our only mode of learning was that, hey, either go to school and learn with 60 kids or go to a coaching institute and learn with 50 kids. There was no concept of customized learning or learning at your own pace. Now this thing is changing, and if you're a Gen Z kid, you get the option of customized learning on literally everything. Right from learning languages to learning something on YouTube, there is always a customized learning option for you. So in short, the things that I loved about the 90s was that the life was simple. It was much easygoing. It was more real. So that is how I would summarize it. But on the flip side, we had very limited options, which led to a lot of inequality. Now, I've not spoken much about Gen Z because I'm not a Gen Z, so I could not have spoken from personal experiences there, but would love to hear from you that how you have lived your life. What are some of the things that you have learned and cherished in your childhood? Do drop in a comment. I would love to read and respond.